Buffalo Bills, wide right. Those two words still haunt Bills fans to this day. The Bills went to the Super Bowl 4 consecutive years from the end of 1991 to 1994. They would lose every appearance, but the closest they came to winning came down to a 47-yard field goal from Scott Norwood. The score was New York Giants 20, Bills 19. 47 yards was around Scott Norwood's range at the time, and while it had enough distance, it was off center, and the New York Giants would take possession and run out the clock. Although the Bills would make it back to the big game for the following 3 seasons, they would never win or come as close. Miami Dolphins, Dan Marino's last game. In 2000, the Dolphins had been the predominant NFL team in Florida for 20 years at that point, but Florida had just gotten a new team only 5 years prior, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Dolphins would play the Jags in the second round of the playoffs and lose the game 62-7. The score was 38-0, and Marino hadn't completed a single pass up until that point. He would get his first completion and then only go on to complete 10 more, finishing the game with 11 completions for 95 yards and 1 touchdown. While Marino told reporters, "Don't ask me about that right now," when asked if this was his last game, it turned out that in fact it was his last game and left a scar on Dolphins fans forever. New England Patriots, back-to-back blowouts. Bill Belichick coached football for 24 seasons. He brought a lot of wins and high moments for the New England Patriots. But starting on October 1st, 2023, the Patriots experienced one of the worst 2-game stretches since they lost 0-52 to the Dolphins in 1972. The Patriots would get a first-quarter field goal to score 3 points against the Dallas Cowboys, and that would be the only points they scored for this game and the next. The Cowboys would go on to score 35 points, with their defense scoring 14 of those. In the next game, on October 8th, they would face off against the New Orleans Saints, where their fate was similar. They would score 0 points and the Saints scored 34, for a combined score of 72-3 in 2 games. New York Jets, 2010 AFC Championship game. The New York Jets had just upset and defeated Peyton Manning and Tom Brady in the playoffs to make it to the AFC Championship, where they would face off against the Pittsburgh Steelers. In this game, the Steelers took an early unanswered lead of 17-0 at the half and would eventually extend the lead to 24-0 when Mark Sanchez fumbled the ball, which was scooped and scored by the Steelers defense. Sanchez would get the score to 10-24 on a deep pass, and then later on the Jets would have the ball on the 1-yard line and couldn't put a touchdown on the board. However, the Steelers would fumble in the end zone and it would be a safety. Sanchez would throw another touchdown to make the score 19-24, but the Jets could not hold off the Steelers, and they were able to run out the 3 minutes on the clock and win the game. Had the Jets been able to make anything happen in the first half, they may have won the game and even the Super Bowl. Baltimore Ravens, 2012 AFC Championship. On January 22, 2012, the Baltimore Ravens faced off against the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. This was a very good and close game. Both quarterbacks made great passes along with interceptions. The Ravens took the lead with less than 2 minutes left in the third quarter, going up 20-16, meaning the Patriots would need a touchdown to take the lead, and that's what happened on a 4th and goal with just over 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The rest of the fourth quarter was a hard-fought battle between the defenses as Joe Flacco and Tom Brady threw back-to-back interceptions, and also both defenses getting stops leading to punts. On the final drive of the game, the Baltimore Ravens had the ball down 23-20. Joe Flacco put together a nice drive, and with 28 seconds left, he threw a perfect pass to Lee Evans for a touchdown that was batted out of his hands and ruled incomplete. 2 plays later, with 15 seconds left in the game, Billy Cundiff attempted a 32-yard field goal to send the game to overtime, but he missed wide left and the Ravens lost in the AFC Championship game. Cincinnati Bengals, Wildcard Weekend 2015. The Cincinnati Bengals seem to have a brighter future now than they did in the early 2000s. Though they had their 3rd Super Bowl appearance in 2022, we're going back to 2015 where the Bengals hadn't won a postseason game since 1991. And on January 9, 2016 versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, that drought continued. This game was close coming down the stretch. The game included a lot of rain, some bad passes, and a hurt Roethlisberger. The Bengals had just went ahead on an A.J. Green touchdown, but called a bad 2-point conversion play and were only up by 1. And then on the first play, Landry Jones, who was in for Big Ben, threw an interception, which looked to seal the game for the Bengals. All they had to do was run the clock out, but Hill had the ball stripped from him on a 1st and 10, giving the Steelers the ball back down 1 with 3 timeouts. Big Ben came back in the game and with a hurt shoulder threw a few screen passes to move the ball downfield. On a first down pass across the middle to Antonio Brown, Vontaze Burfict, who was looked at as one of the most dirty players to play the game, led with his shoulder, concussing Antonio Brown. When a Steelers defensive coach came on the field to check on Brown, Adam Pac-Man Jones got into it with the Steelers coach and was also flagged for 15 yards. So between Vontaze Burfict and Pac-Man Jones, the Steelers got 30 yards of penalties on one play, setting rookie kicker Chris Boswell up for a 35-yard chip shot and the Steelers' lead to win the game. Cleveland Browns, the drive and the fumble. It was the AFC Championship and the Browns were 5 minutes away from beating the Broncos and going to the Super Bowl. The Browns had just came back from being down 10, and a rookie for the Broncos made a mistake and put the Broncos at the 2-yard line needing a touchdown to go to overtime. John Elway put together what is called one of the greatest drives in NFL history, moving the ball 92 yards, even converting a 3rd and 18 to stay alive during the drive. This led to a 5-yard touchdown which sent the game to overtime where the Broncos would win and go to the Super Bowl. The very next year in the same game, the AFC Championship, the Broncos and Browns would face off again. The Browns would be down 23-3 at the half, but end up tying the game 31-31. John Elway would put together a scoring drive and the Browns needed a touchdown to tie. Instead, on a second down, 8 yards away from a touchdown, Ernest Biner fumbled the ball and Denver recovered. This would lead to a Broncos win for the second year in a row to go to the Super Bowl. Pittsburgh Steelers, Super Bowl 45. In the category of worst losses, what could be worse than losing in the Super Bowl? The Steelers played the Green Bay Packers in Super Bowl 45 and couldn't do enough to walk away with the trophy. They were aiming for their 3rd Super Bowl in 6 years. They were down early with a score of 21-7 at halftime, but they were able to rally back with just over 7 minutes left in the game. The Steelers scored and converted a 2-point conversion, making the score 25-28. Just a 3-point game. The Packers put together a nice drive that ended in a field goal, pushing the lead to 6. All the Steelers had to do was score a touchdown to seal the win. But Ben Roethlisberger made some bad throws on the final drive, which led to an incomplete pass on 4th down, with 50 seconds left, sealing the win for the Packers. Houston Texans, divisional game. In the 2020 playoffs, the Houston Texans had to go through Arrowhead to get to the next round. They would face off against Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce. Despite being against this all-star lineup, the Texans went up 24-0 in the first quarter. They were on a roll on both sides of the ball and scoring on both sides as well. And things were looking great for Houston. But things took a turn in the second quarter when the Chiefs would score 28 unanswered points before the half and 51 points in the game. The Texans would lose in a heartbreaking matchup that looked very promising in the opening minutes. Indianapolis Colts, divisional round. In 2006, the Colts would face off against the Pittsburgh Steelers in a divisional playoff game. This was considered to be one of the best Colts teams because they had all 3 areas of the team complete: the offense, defense, and special teams. This still wouldn't stop the Steelers from taking an early 14-0 lead on them. Manning would throw an interception in the 4th quarter to Troy Polamalu, which could have sealed the fate of the Colts, but the call was overturned to an incomplete pass, even though many fans will tell you otherwise. This allowed the Colts offense to remain on the field and drive down and score, and also complete the 2-point conversion, cutting the Steelers' lead to 3 at 21-18. The Steelers would end up punting on the next drive, and between a no-gain pass, an incomplete pass, and 2 sacks from the Colts, they would turn their ball over on downs on their own 2-yard line, all but sealing the win for the Steelers. But on 1st and 10, Jerome Bettis would have the ball knocked out of his hands and Nick Harper for the Colts would scoop it and take off down the field with one man to beat, Ben Roethlisberger. If he would have stayed wide right, Harper would have been able to outrun Ben, but he cut it back in and Ben was able to trip him up enough to make him fall. Manning will make some nice passes to get the Colts into field goal range. And with 21 seconds left, Mike Vonderjack lined up to kick the tying field goal. He kicked it wide right and the Steelers would advance. This was a heartbreaking loss for the Colts players and fans alike. Jacksonville Jaguars. 3rd time isn't the charm. In 1999, the Jaguars would only lose 3 games, once to the Tennessee Titans, twice to the Tennessee Titans, and a 3rd time to the Tennessee Titans. The 3rd loss coming in the AFC Championship. AFC Championship games can be a little more heartbreaking than losing the Super Bowl sometimes because you didn't even get to go, but were so close. This was the case for the Jags in that January of 2000. Coming off of a season where you beat everyone except one team, going 14-2, and having a chance to redeem yourself and keep them out of the Super Bowl, a third loss stings a little more. The score will be 7-7 early on, and 14-10 at the half. McNair would score a QB sneak for the Titans, putting them up 17-14, and what happened on the next drive sealed the fate of the Jaguars. Jags quarterback Mark Brunell was sacked in the end zone for a safety, giving the Titans 2 more points. And on the free kick after the safety, Derek Mason will return it for 80 yards and a touchdown, changing the score from 17-14 to 26-14 in less than 30 seconds. The defense would show up and no scoring would come until the fourth quarter, where Steve McNair would scramble for 51 yards all the way down to the Jags' 1-yard line. And on the next play, QB sneak it for a touchdown. The score was now 33-14, which would be the final score, and the Jaguars would lose for the third time to the same team in a single season. Tennessee Titans, the longest yard. It's ironic that after serving the Jags with one of their most heartbreaking losses ever, just 2 weeks later in Super Bowl 34, they would experience one of their most heartbreaking losses. The Titans faced off against the St. Louis Rams. The Rams were up 9-0 at the half. The Titans were able to hold off the high-octane offense of the Rams, but weren't able to put points on the board themselves. The Rams would score a touchdown in the third quarter, making the score 16-0. Then the Titans would score 16 unanswered points, which had never been done in the Super Bowl up until that point. Kurt Warner would throw a 73-yard touchdown and give the Rams the lead, and the Titans would respond with a drive that included some amazing plays by Steve McNair and put them on the Rams' 10-yard line with 6 seconds left. McNair would make a quick pass and Mike Jones would tackle Titans wide receiver Kevin Dyson just 1 yard short of the end zone. Dyson had his arm outstretched reaching for the end zone but was short, just inches away from tying the game. Instead, the Super Bowl was over and won by the Rams. Denver Broncos, three-peat ruined early. The Broncos seem to be a team with many worst game candidates in the eyes of lifelong fans. But the one for this video we'll talk about is how the Broncos three-peat ended before it started. The ambush at Mile High stings for a lot of longtime Broncos fans. Denver hadn't lost at Mile High Stadium all year and had a chance to keep that going in the divisional game versus Mark Brunell and the Jaguars, who had only been a team for 2 years at that point. The Broncos were 14-point favorites coming into that game and almost covered the spread in the first quarter, going up 12-0. By the half, the Jags had went ahead 13-12, and with 1 minute and 50 seconds left in the game, the Jags led 30-27. The Broncos had just scored and were out of timeouts. They needed to recover the onside kick to stay in the game, but the Jags recovered and kneeled the clock out. Tight end Shannon Sharp said, "That game made the vets on the team promise that would never happen again." And the Broncos went on to win the next 2 Super Bowls, but not before the newborn Jaguars could end the three-peat early. Kansas City Chiefs, Lynn Elliott game. In 1995, the Chiefs were 13-3 and 8-0 at home. And all that came to an end on January 7th, 1996, when the Lynn Elliott game happened. The Colts were a dome team, and the record for dome teams playing away from home wasn't great at all at that point. Jim Harbaugh and the Colts had just beat the 49ers the week before, and now traveled again to play the Chiefs, who had a first-round bye. And the Colts were also down running back Marshall Faulk, so expectations were high from Chiefs fans. In this game, kicker Lynn Elliott would miss 3 field goals from 35, 39, and 42 yards. The last one coming with 42 seconds left in the game as the Chiefs trailed 10-7. In this low-scoring affair, if he would have just made 1, that would have been enough to force overtime, which is why it stings so bad. And even though Lynn Elliott took a lot of the blame for the loss, quarterback Steve Bono was equally as guilty, throwing for only 122 yards and 3 interceptions, and ended up being taken out of the game. With these 2 performances from Bono and Elliott, it became a terrible memory for Chiefs fans. Oakland Raiders, Tuck Rule game. Some of these moments in heartbreaking games are lesser known, and then there are some that everyone knows. This is one of them, the Tuck Rule game. The snow was falling on January 19, 2002 for an AFC divisional playoff game between the Oakland Raiders and the New England Patriots. The Raiders will come to Foxborough Stadium for its last game. Early in the second quarter, James Jett would catch a touchdown pass and the score will be 7-0. This will remain the score until the third quarter, where a series of field goals will make the score 13-3. And on a Tom Brady touchdown in the fourth quarter, the score will be 13-10. Tom Brady and the Patriots would make their way down the field, and with 1 minute and 48 seconds left in the fourth quarter, one of the most controversial calls in NFL history was made. Tom Brady pump faked and appeared to fumble the ball, which was clearly recovered by the Raiders. The referees let the call as a fumble stand so they could review it. Upon review, they overturned the call and stated that Brady tucked the ball, making it an incomplete pass and not a fumble. This kept the Patriots alive, and they were able to tie the game 13-13 and then go on to win in overtime with a field goal. The thing that makes it so bad is that if it was called a fumble and the Raiders recovered it, the game virtually would have been over and the Raiders would have won. San Diego Chargers, 2006 AFC Divisional Game. The Chargers would face off against the Patriots in the 2006 AFC Divisional Game. This game was a back and forth with interceptions and scoring from both offenses. The Patriots found themselves down 13-21 with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And on a 4th and 5, Tom Brady threw another interception to Marlon McCree. However, right after the interception, McCree was stripped by Troy Brown, and the Patriots recovered it, giving them a fresh set of downs. And they would score 4 plays later, making the score 21-21. And then the Patriots would take the go-ahead field goal to make it 24-21. With 8 seconds left in the game, Chargers attempted a 54-yard field goal to tie, but missed wide right, and it was over. Most people look at the interception and fumble by McCree as the turning point in the game. Chargers players said that they were shouting "get down" right after he intercepted the ball, and once the Pats players recovered it, several players taunted Chargers on and off the field, holding their own necks to indicate choking, doing mockeries of Charger player celebrations, and verbal taunting as well. That moment was a true momentum shift. Dallas Cowboys, the catch. This is another one of those well-known season-changing moments in sports history. One that left every Cowboys fan stunned and sad. In an NFC divisional playoff game, the Dallas Cowboys faced off against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. After a back-and-forth game and a great showing by rookie Davante Adams, the Cowboys found themselves down 5 in the fourth quarter. With 5 minutes left in the game, the Cowboys faced a 4th and 2 from the Packers' 32-yard line. Tony Romo lofted up a pass to Dez Bryant, who caught the ball and landed at the 1-yard line, setting the Cowboys up for a 1st and goal from the 1-yard line. Green Bay head coach Mike McCarthy would challenge the ruling on the field, and it would be overturned to an incomplete pass, since Dez Bryant did not maintain control of the ball all the way to the ground. The Dallas defense could not stop the offense of Randall Cobb, Aaron Rodgers, and Davante Adams, and eventually the clock struck 0 and the game was over. Many fans, including fans of other teams, think Dez caught it, but the refs decided otherwise. New York Giants, NFC wildcard. Giants fans may not have known which one I was going to pick for their team, and after research, I understand why. But a game that got mentioned a lot was the meltdown versus the 49ers in the NFC wildcard game in 2003. There was just over 4 minutes left in the third quarter. The Giants had just kicked a field goal to make the lead 38-14. This game looked to be all but over, and then one of the worst meltdowns in playoff history happened. By the time there were 5 seconds off the clock in the fourth quarter, the 49ers had cut the lead, and the score was 30-38, with 2 quick touchdowns and 2-point conversions. With 3 minutes left, the score was 38-33, and the Giants had a chance to extend the lead with a field goal. But on a less than perfect snap, the kick was missed. The 49ers would drive down and score with 1 minute left, and while they were 2 for 2 on 2-point conversions, this time it was intercepted. The score was 38-39 49ers. A good kickoff return set the Giants up nicely, and with 6 seconds left in the game, they attempted a 41-yard field goal to win. But on a muffed snap, the placeholder had to scramble with the ball and throw it to the end zone. The Giants had an ineligible man downfield and were flagged for it. The 49ers also committed a pass interference, but since the refs thought the Giants receiver was ineligible, they didn't call it. Therefore, there was no defensive penalty to offset the offensive penalty, and the game was over. The NFL later stated that it should have been pass interference, which would have resulted in the penalties offsetting and the Giants kicking again from the same spot. Would they have got it right on a second try? Philadelphia Eagles, closing the Vet. The Vet, or Veterans Stadium, saw its last NFL game. That may have been sad enough for Eagles fans, but the Bucs wanted to make it worse. In the NFC Championship game on January 19, 2003, the Eagles faced off against the Bucs, who they had beat in the previous 2 years in the playoffs. The Bucs were a bad team in the cold, and it was freezing in Philly. However, that night, it changed. The score was 17-10 at the half, and with 1 minute left in the third, the Bucs kicked a field goal to go up 20-10. With just over 6 minutes left in the game, the score remained the same, and Donovan McNabb and the Eagles were about to start a drive to hopefully narrow the lead to 20-17. But not even 1 minute later on 1st and goal, Donovan McNabb would be baited by Rondé Barber and pay a big price. Barber would take the ball 94 yards on an interception for a pick six to give the Bucs a 27-10 lead. The game was virtually over, and on an incomplete pass from McNabb on 4th down the next drive, it was sealed. The Bucs had won. Fans and players recall the stadium being dead silent after the interception, all shocked that they weren't going to the Super Bowl this year. Chicago Bears, Super Bowl 41. The 13-3 Bears were poised to win the Super Bowl in 2007, breezing through the regular season and making it to Miami to face off against the Indianapolis Colts in the Super Bowl. The game kicked off in storybook fashion, no pun intended. Devin Hester took the opening kickoff back for 92 yards and a touchdown, giving Bears fans instant joy in the big game. But with many turnovers in the first half and a missed field goal by the Colts, the score sat at 16-14 Colts going into the half. In the second half, a few field goals sat the score at 22-17 until Rex Grossman threw a pick six to the Colts defense, and the lead was now 29-17. In the fourth quarter, on the next drive, Rex Grossman would throw another interception on a deep ball, which would eventually end the contest, and the Colts were Super Bowl champions in a game where the Bears came out hot. Detroit Lions, 2023 NFC Championship. I know there have been some bad losses as Lions fans. Maybe this one is recency bias, or maybe it's because this is the farthest the Lions have ever made it. This Lions team was and still looks very promising, but in the NFC Championship versus the 49ers, they had a heartbreaking meltdown. The Lions were firing on all cylinders in the first half, taking a lead of 24-7 going into halftime. They looked like they couldn't be stopped, and then coming out of halftime, things changed. The 49ers in this game had Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and more. It was only a matter of time before they found rhythm, and that's exactly what they did. Some nice catches from Deebo Samuel and turnovers from the Lions. The score was now 24-24. And a failed 4th down for the Lions gave the 49ers the ball, which led to 3 points. And the Lions would also find themselves in a position to take 3 points on a 4th and 3. But Dan Campbell decided to risk it, and it didn't pay off. The 49ers extended the lead to 10 after that, with the score being 34-24. And even though the Lions would score on a touchdown, they weren't able to get the ball back on the onside kick, and did not advance to the Super Bowl. Many fans think Dan Campbell should have taken the 3 points to tie it up. Green Bay Packers, NFC Championship. With the Packers being just 5 minutes away from going to the Super Bowl, Russell Wilson throws an interception and the game looks to be coming to an end with the Packers going to the big game. Up 19-7 with the ball and a 99% chance of winning, the Packers had the worst meltdown imaginable. They ended up punting the ball back to the Russell Wilson-led Seahawks, with just over 3 minutes left. About a minute later, Wilson was running the ball into the end zone to cut the lead to 5. With such little time left, the Seahawks had to kick an onside kick. And with a botched recovery by the Packers, the Seahawks got the ball back. With some nice plays by Wilson and an excellent run by beast mode Marshawn Lynch, the Seahawks took the lead. And with a prayer thrown on a 2-point conversion, Luke Wilson extended the lead to 3, giving Aaron Rodgers the ball back with a minute 19 left on the clock. He was able to lead his team down to kick a tying field goal and send the game to overtime, which ended up favoring the Seahawks. A 35-yard touchdown pass to Curse ended the game and the Packers' hopes of going to the Super Bowl. Minnesota Vikings, NFC Championship game. Randy Moss rookie season, Coach of the Year, 15-1 record, a kicker who seemingly could not miss, making 59 of 59 extra points on the season and 35 of 35 field goals on the season. This team was bound for the Super Bowl, to go face the John Elway-led Broncos, who Vikings fans think they would have beat. The Vikings found themselves up 27-20 with 2 minutes and 9 seconds left in the game. Gary Anderson was lining up to do what he had done 35 times before this season. kick a field goal. The ball was snapped and kicked, but this time it was different. He missed for the first time and could not give the Vikings the 2-possession lead with 2 minutes left. The Falcons were able to drive down and force an overtime in which they would win. If Anderson was able to keep his perfect kicking record, things may have played out very differently for the Vikings that year. Atlanta Falcons, Super Bowl 51. Apart from all the games on this list, this may be the only game every fan base could tell you about if you asked them. 28-3. That score will haunt Falcons fans forever. That was the score halfway through the third quarter of Super Bowl 51, as the Falcons led versus the New England Patriots. There was no way in the world the Falcons could lose this game, right? Wrong. You would think with the 3 and outs by the Pats and the pick 6 made by the Falcons defense, that luck just wasn't on the Patriots side this night. And then everything changed. The Pats were able to put 9 on the board to make it 28-12, and then a forced fumble by the Pats led to an Amendola touchdown, and with a 2-point conversion, it was just an 8-point game with 6 minutes left. The Falcons got a sack and a holding back-to-back, which made it 3rd and 33, and they had to give the ball back to the Pats once again. From the 6-yard line, Tom Brady led his team down, and James White ran the ball in with 50 seconds left and forced an overtime. The Falcons didn't even get to touch the ball, as White once again broke the plane and the Falcons just lost the Super Bowl. Carolina Panthers, Super Bowl 38. This came down to 2 Super Bowls. While a lot of fans agreed that Super Bowl 50 was more heartbreaking as a fan, a fair amount agreed that they never felt like they were going to win that game. However, in Super Bowl 38, there was hope, which made it all the worse in the end. Only 2 years removed from a 1-15 season, the Panthers found themselves in the Super Bowl. And with just over 3 minutes left in the second quarter, the score was 0-0. And in the next few minutes, both teams would score twice. 2 touchdowns from the Patriots and a touchdown and a 50-yard field goal from Panthers kicker John Casey, making the score at the half 14-10. With all that scoring to end the first half, it was a surprise to have yet another scoreless quarter in the third. But just 11 seconds into the fourth, the Patriots opened the floodgates for a 37-point quarter, the most in Super Bowl history. Another Super Bowl record they reached was 12 penalties. After trailing 21-10 in the fourth quarter, the Panthers scored 2 unanswered touchdowns, which would have made the lead 24-21. But John Fox attempted 2-point conversions on both touchdowns and didn't convert either one. However, the Patriots were able to score and convert their own 2-point conversion, making the score 29-22. And with a 12-yard touchdown catch from Ricky Proehl, the floodgates of scoring remained open. The score was 29-29. And on the kickoff, John Casey tried to pin the Patriots by not giving them a touchback, but it didn't work in their favor, and the ball went out of bounds, giving Tom Brady and the Patriots the ball at the 40-yard line with 3 timeouts. Adam Vinatieri would go down and kick the game winner, and the Panthers would lose by 3. New Orleans Saints, no call versus Rams. With 1:35 left in the first quarter, the Saints scored for the 3rd time, with 2 field goals and a 5-yard touchdown pass from Breeze, giving them a 13-0 lead. The momentum could have kept rolling if the Rams didn't convert a fake punt on 4th and 5 to start the second quarter, which led to 3 points for the Rams. And with another touchdown, the Rams cut the deficit to 3, with the score being 13-10. With 5 minutes remaining left in the game, the Rams kicked a game-tying field goal to make the score 20-20, and on the next drive, one of the most controversial playoff no-calls happened. On 3rd and 10 in the red zone, Drew Brees threw a pass to Tommy Lee Lewis, where he was hit and sent flying by Robbie Coleman on the most clear pass interference call of all time. But with a referee standing right there, he called it incomplete, and it was 4th down. Both teams will kick field goals to go to overtime with a score of 23-23. But on a tip pass from Drew Brees, the Rams intercepted the ball and kicked the game-winning field goal. After the game, Coleman was in the locker room where he was shown a replay of the missed PI call and admitted it was pass interference. That would have given the Saints a 1st down and could have changed the entire outcome of the playoffs. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, NFC Championship. When you hold one of the greatest offenses of your time to 11 points on their home field, you would assume that would lead to a win. In this case, 11 was enough for the Rams to win the game over the Buccaneers. This was a low-scoring affair that ended up being decided by the help of controversy and left fans being confused and angry for years to come. with the score being 5-6, Bucs leading. The Rams scored on a deep touchdown pass from Kurt Warner to Ricky Proehl, and with the failed 2-point conversion, the score sat at 11-6. All the Bucs needed was a touchdown to win the game, but this was easier said than done, seeing how they hadn't had one in the game. But on their final drive, Bucs were putting together a nice drive to march down the field, and on 1st and 10 from just outside the red zone, Sean King was sacked for a loss of 13, making it 2nd and 23, where a game-changing call was made. Bertie Manuel caught a catch that would have made it 3rd and 10, but the play was reviewed and ruled incomplete because the tip of the ball touched the ground. This was the first year instant replay was used, so just a season earlier this would have been ruled a catch and no way to overturn it. But with the new system in place, the call was overturned, and it was now 3rd and 23, and 2 plays later King threw the last pass of the game for the Buccaneers, and the Rams went on to win the game 11-6. Arizona Cardinals, Super Bowl 43. The last team featured a year where Kurt Warner won the Super Bowl. But for the Arizona Cardinal fans, this story ends with him losing it. The first half of this game was action-packed. You had touchdowns by both teams, and you had turnovers by both teams. Ben Roethlisberger being picked off when the ball was tipped high, and Kurt Warner being intercepted on the goal line that turned into a 100-yard pick six to end the half, and gave the Steelers a 17-7 lead. And with just under 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, the lead had only grown to 20-7. And then Larry Fitzgerald would catch a touchdown pass in the red zone to narrow the game to 1 score. Not long after, the Steelers would commit a holding in the end zone, which resulted in a safety. And a 64-yard touchdown pass to Larry Fitzgerald gave the Cardinals a 23-20 lead. With only a minute left, all they needed was 1 stop to win the Super Bowl. But Priest Holmes and Big Ben had other plans. Holmes would catch and run down to the Cardinals' 5-yard line. And 2 plays later, Big Ben found him again in the back corner, hidden behind 3 Cardinals defenders, where he would reach up and grab it, and keep his feet in the very corner of the end zone to take the lead. And with less than a minute left, the Cardinals couldn't score and lost the Super Bowl, and the Steelers were the first team to win 6 big games. St. Louis Rams, Super Bowl 36. What's more ironic than having Kurt Warner featured in back-to-back worst losses in team's history? Having him featured in 3 worst losses in team's history. The Rams were known as the greatest show on turf, coming off a Super Bowl victory just 2 years earlier, and having many amazing players, and also being 2-score favorites to win this Super Bowl. That made it all the worse. Against a young Bill Belichick with a losing record with the Browns, and a backup quarterback named Tom Brady, the Rams had a good chance to win their 2nd Super Bowl in 3 years. But in the first half, the Patriots defense showed up to play, with a pick six and another close interception that was out of bounds, along with a forced fumble that led to a scoring drive. The score was 3-14 at the half. Both defenses continued to play as only 3 points were scored in the 3rd quarter. And in the 4th quarter, on a 4th and goal, Kurt Warner scrambled and fumbled at the 1-yard line, and it was scoop and scored by the Pats defense. But with the holding call, it was called back and the Rams scored shortly after, making it 10-17. And with a Ricky Proehl touchdown a few minutes later, the Rams would tie the game 17-17, giving the Patriots the ball back with no timeouts, and that was all Tom Brady needed. With some short passes and spiked balls, the Patriots were able to move up the field and get into field goal range with 7 seconds left, where Adam Vinatieri would kick the game winner, starting a dynasty for one team and ending a potential one for the other, as the Rams didn't even make the playoffs the following season. San Francisco 49ers, the Blackout Bowl. In a game where you're down 21-3 at the half to the underdog in a Super Bowl, due to turnovers and poor defense, it can't get much worse, right? Well, if you're kicking it off to Jacoby Jones, it can, as he took the kickoff back 108 yards to push the lead to 28-6. And then 2 plays into the next drive, the power goes out for 34 minutes, which is how it got its name, the Blackout Bowl. But the tides changed for the 49ers, and things started to come together as they scored 17 unanswered points on a 30-yard touchdown pass from Colin Kaepernick and a rushing touchdown from Frank Gore. The score was now 28-23. And after a Ravens field goal, Colin Kaepernick would run it in for a 16-yard touchdown, but failed the 2-point conversion, making the score 31-29 Ravens. And after yet another Ravens field goal, they went up 5 points, giving the 49ers the ball back, needing a touchdown to win. Gore would make it down to the 7-yard line, and this is where a lot of fans have questions. Instead of running it and living with the results, they decided to pass on 3 out of the 4 plays, all of them incomplete. They were so close to the end zone and couldn't convert, leaving 49ers fans baffled. The Ravens punter would go on to run out the clock in the end zone and take a safety with 4 seconds left. And a punt was the 49ers' last hope, which fell short, and the Ravens won the Super Bowl when the 49ers were just 7 yards away. Seattle Seahawks, Super Bowl 49. When you're coming off a Super Bowl win the previous year and make it back to the big game, pick off Tom Brady twice, and are up 24-14 with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, things are looking pretty good. But you can never count out the GOAT, and that may be what the Seahawks did. Tom Brady threw a touchdown pass to Danny Amendola to cut the deficit to 3. No team at this point had came back from a larger deficit than 7 in the fourth quarter, and that was about to change. At the 2:02 mark, Brady found Edelman in the end zone to take a 28-24 lead, giving the Russell Wilson-led Seahawks the ball back with enough time to make a drive, and that's what they did. Jermaine Kearse caught an amazing circus catch near the 5-yard line, and at that point, everyone in the building and watching around the world knew what time it was. It was Marshawn Lynch time, beast mode, and that's exactly what happened. He was handed the ball off and tackled at the 1-yard line. Do this 3 more times if needed and you have a Super Bowl lead with less than 1 minute left. But for reasons unknown, a passing play was called, and the worst possible outcome happened. An interception on the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Another case, and maybe the worst case, of having the Super Bowl in your hands and throwing it away. Washington Redskins, Monday Night Massacre. An 88-yard touchdown seems like a play that has to be warmed up for, but not for the Michael Vick-led Eagles. This was the opening play versus the Redskins to Deshaun Jackson. And with a Vick rushing touchdown and a LaShawn McCoy receiving touchdown after a McNabb interception, the Eagles had scored 3 times in less than 10 minutes. Jerome Harrison would run a 50-yard touchdown in, and this would be the only Eagles offensive touchdown of the night not involving Michael Vick. And they weren't done embarrassing the Skins. Vick hurled up a 48-yard pass to Jeremy Maclin, who caught an amazing catch for a touchdown. The score was 35-0. McNabb would fight back against his former team and score 14 unanswered points, but it was too little too late. McNabb would throw yet another interception, which led to a very easy touchdown rush by Vick. And Avant would later catch a touchdown with 6 minutes left in the third. The score was 52-21. The Redskins were getting destroyed. And on the next drive, McNabb would throw another interception, and this time it was for 6. The Eagles had racked up 58 points. The rest of the game wasn't as eventful, with a final score of 58-28 and an embarrassment for Washington fans.